A secret recording cracks open the boardroom doors of a global religious empire, exposing shouting matches, accusations of child abuse cover-ups, and a stunning admission: sign this NDA or lose your job. This isn't corporate drama, it's the implosion of Daystar Television Network, where faith, family, and fortune collide in a firestorm of controversy. At the center is Joni Lamb, son of the late ministry giant Marcus Lamb, fired amid claims he refused to stay silent about alleged misconduct. But his dismissal is just one thread in a tapestry of scandal: taxpayer funds buying private jets, leaders accused of burying child abuse allegations, and a Nigerian church's humble beginnings now overshadowed by American excess. The truth is messier than a sermon, buried beneath layers of legal threats, private investigators, and the crumbling facade of a ministry that promised spiritual guidance but delivered dynastic warfare. Joni Lamb's exit from Daystar isn't just a resignation, it's a battlefield. The ministry claims he was terminated for performance shortcomings and refusing third-party mediation to resolve scriptural complaints. But in a leaked November 2023 board meeting audio, Joni fires back: "They demanded I sign an NDA to bury everything." The recording reveals a tense hour-long standoff. Board member Tom Callender's voice is icy: "Comply or leave." Joni's refusal is met with immediate dismissal. But why the urgency to silence him? Joni and his wife, Susie, allege a darker motive. They'd begun exposing how Daystar leadership, including Joni's mother, President Joni Lamb, concealed child sexual abuse by a family member. "They protected the abuser, not my daughter," Joni states in the audio. The NDA, he insists, was a gag order to hide the truth. Daystar dismisses this as a smear campaign, accusing Joni of bitterness after Joni, not him, was named president after Marcus Lamb's death. Yet the audio reveals more. Joni allegedly disparaged Susie as having a Jezebel spirit, and shockingly, Daystar secretly planted a GPS tracker on Joni's car. Is this how Christ's church operates? Joni demands in the recording. The clash isn't just about paperwork, it's about power, vengeance, and what happens when a ministry confuses loyalty with secrecy. The tracker discovery paints a picture of surveillance more suited to corporate espionage than spiritual leadership, suggesting Joni was perceived as a threat long before his termination. Former staffers whisper about internal security teams monitoring dissenters, while donor funds allegedly bankrolled private investigators to dig into critics' backgrounds. Like, comment, and subscribe for unfiltered access to leaked evidence and explosive updates. This story is evolving daily. The abuse allegations form the storm's bitter eye. Joni and Susie Lamb claim their young daughter exhibited severe trauma after interactions with a relative: night terrors, regression in speech, and violent recoiling at the alleged abuser's touch. When they demanded accountability, they say Joni Lamb discouraged police involvement, insisting the family handles its own, and held a private meeting with the child. Afterward, their daughter stopped speaking about the abuse entirely, a silence Susie calls terrifyingly orchestrated. The board audio captures Joni confronting Joni: "You silenced her," while referencing forensic specialist Debbie Leonard's assessment of the child's psychological fracturing. Daystar denies obstruction, but the Lambs point to Marcus Lamb's earlier handling of similar claims. Before his death, Marcus allegedly declared an accused staff member cleared without investigation, a pattern, critics say, of prioritizing reputation over victims. Former Daystar employees now describe a culture of omerta, where staff signed ironclad NDAs and feared retaliation for questioning leadership. One ex-producer recounts being transferred to a prayer closet office after raising ethics concerns, while another describes abrupt firings following whispers about financial irregularities. The heartbreak is palpable: a family splintered, a child's voice suppressed, and a ministry accused of shielding predators. "They used God's name to hide sin," Susie states in an independent interview, noting how biblical language like covering and authority submission was weaponized to enforce silence. Meanwhile, another scandal resurfaced: Marcus Lamb's $3.9 million PPP loan. In 2020, Daystar took taxpayer funds meant to save jobs during COVID, then bought a $14 million Gulfstream jet weeks later. Marcus claimed the jet was funded by investments and old jet sales, not PPP cash. But investigators revealed luxury vacations, Florida beach trips, our amazing fam on vacay. Joni posted golf outings and Naples getaways, all using the ministry jet. Flight logs obtained by watchdogs show the jet frequently shuttled between Dallas and vacation hotspots during peak pandemic lockdowns, with no ministry events listed on itineraries. Public outcry forced Daystar to repay the loan, but questions lingered. Why did a church owning mansions and jets need public aid? Attorney John Lynch's defense, "We don't use donor funds for operations," rang hollow when ministry watchdogs noted Daystar's relentless donation appeals during the same period, including emotional segments about keeping God's work alive amid financial crisis. The hypocrisy stung. Leaders like Kenneth Copeland preached austerity to viewers while Lamb's Gulfstream idled on private runways. Tax experts highlight Daystar's opaque finances. It files as a church to avoid IRS Form 990 disclosures, making luxury expenditures untraceable. "It's a shell game with sacred money," says Trinity Foundation investigator Pete Evans. Amid U.S. turmoil, Daystar's origin story feels like a distant parable. Founded in 1995 by Nigerian pastors Sam and Nike Adami, it began as a radio ministry in a cramped Lagos Chinese restaurant. They battled eviction, unreliable studios, and poverty, once counting offerings mid-service to pay a hostile landlord who threatened to cut power during communion. "We fasted 11 days for God's direction," Sam recalls, describing miracles like finding a warehouse through divine visions after members planted a prophetic stick in the ground. Their humble struggle contrasts sharply with Daystar's U.S. evolution under the Lambs. Marcus's 18,000-square-foot mansion with a waterfall pool, private jets ferrying prosperity preachers to luxury retreats, and executive suites where board members debated NDAs over $100 coffees. The disconnect is jarring. What would Sam Adami think of a church installing trackers on critics' cars or silencing abuse victims? Nigerian congregants express quiet dismay, with one Lagos elder noting, "We sweated for souls while they collected jets." Daystar's unraveling isn't about one family. It's a cautionary tale for modern religious empires built on personality cults and financial opacity. The leaked board audio exposes a culture of control, NDAs weaponized to silence dissent, trackers monitoring critics, and leaders accused of circling wagons around abuse while preaching accountability to millions. Marcus Lamb's PPP scandal revealed a thirst for luxury disguised as ministry, a jet-setting life funded by pandemic aid while ordinary believers lost jobs. Jonathan Lamb's firing underscores a brutal truth. In institutions where power replaces piety, whistleblowers become enemies and scripture becomes a shield for misconduct. The Nigerian founder's sacrifice highlights what's been lost, a faith that served the desperate, not the entitled, and miracles measured in transformed lives, not private aviation fuel. As police reopen abuse investigations and watchdog groups dissect Daystar's labyrinthine finances, the ministry faces an existential reckoning. Can an empire built on revelation survive its own secrets? The answer hinges on transparency or collapse. Donors are fleeing, legacy partners like David Jeremiah's Turning Point distance themselves, and state regulators circle like hawks. Yet Daystar's crisis reflects a broader sickness in megachurch culture. The blurring of divine calling and dynastic entitlement, where covering means concealment and faith funds private fiefdoms. The real tragedy isn't the scandals, it's the shattered trust of believers who donated grocery money while leaders vacationed on Gulfstreams. Until ministries prioritize forensic audits over image management and victim advocacy over legal gag orders, the unraveling will continue. The boardroom tapes are more than evidence. They're a mirror reflecting a broken system where faith became a currency and family feuds drowned out the still, small voice of truth. This story demands accountability. If you believe in truth, like this video, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe. We're tracking every development. The boardroom tapes, they're just the beginning.